Jessie David here, and joining me is Brent Smith of Shinedown. How's it going today?
It's going good. I'm in California at the moment, and there's not a cloud in the sky, so I have nothing to complain about. It's a nice day.
Ah, beautiful. So how are you holding up with this whole COVID-19 pandemic?
I'm holding up pretty solid. I mean, I think like a lot of us when everybody was catching wind of this and figuring out exactly what was going on, because I think that the rug was violently ripped out from underneath all of our collective feet. This isn't just something in the United States. You know, a pandemic is basically an epidemic with a passport, so it's everywhere. So I think that navigating this is something that's so new to everybody because it's not happening in, our generation. But all things considered, staying optimistic, staying positive, and trying to stay focused and take care of one subject matter at a time.
You recently released a song called Atlas Falls. Tell me about the song.
So in order to talk about the song, I have to talk about why the song exists.
Love it.
The reality was, if I walk it back 7-8 weeks ago, myself and our guitar player, Mr. Zach Myers, we have a side project called Smith and Myers and a double album that's going to be coming out later this year. But while we were in the studio in Malibu working on this, we weren't really paying attention to the news. We were in a studio working 8 to 12 hours a day, being creative and not being sidetracked with anything. So the day that we found out that South by Southwest had been canceled, we started to look and see what was actually going on. And then let's fast forward a little bit here. We were in the midst of a pandemic. And so the first thing was getting him back to Memphis, to his wife and his boys. And then I kind of basically hunkered down where I was here in California. But in that time frame, I didn't know what the pandemic was. I didn't understand what coronavirus was, nor COVID-19. I had never heard the term social distancing. And so what I began to do is just educate myself and kind of do as much catch-up as I could to see what was actually going on. Upon doing that and researching a lot of different things online and what have you, I came across this organization called Direct Relief. And what Direct Relief does is their sole mission, because they're not biased and they're not political, their whole goal is to make sure that the men and the women in the medical and the scientific community have the resources that they need during times of crisis. They work with all 50 states, and they also work with 100 countries. And inside of that also, going into this entire situation, the frontline workers, especially 8 weeks ago when a lot was really hitting the fan, they were extremely essential. They're even more essential now as we're learning how we're combating this virus. But so we brought a song out of the vault that meant a lot to us that has never been on an album before. We always had a love for this song called Atlas Falls. It was during the time that we were doing our fourth album, Amaryllis, and the writing sessions on that. And, just because we write a song and it doesn't make a record doesn't make it a bad song. It just means that it wasn't right for that particular time. But the song is a symbol of optimism and perseverance and hope. And so what we did was we reached out directly to Direct Relief. We created a partnership with each other, and so we created a shirt also, because what we wanted to do is put something out into the world that gave hope and gave optimism and kind of got people out of the funk of this, something to latch onto, because for a lot of people, music is air. And I know it is for me, because it's extremely important. So if you go to shinedown.com, you can hit the link for Atlas Falls. We created a T-shirt, and so if you buy the shirt, 100% of the proceeds goes to Direct Relief, and inside of that too. And I should make a mention about Direct Relief, with that mission that they have for the medical, the men and the women in those communities and the scientific community, their job starts in the midst of crisis. So whether it's poverty, whether it's a natural disaster, whether it's a pandemic, anything that would cause, serious action to take place very quickly to save as many lives as possible, that's when Direct Relief goes to work. That's what makes them so important. So we've raised about $300,000 because of the fan base already.
Amazing.
With the T-shirt. It's continuing to be up on our site. Atlas Falls, that shirt, the proceeds will always go to Direct Relief from now until, however long we keep the shirt, available. But the reality is when you get the shirt, you get the download of Atlas as a thank you. Not only are we in a fight for our survival, we're in a fight for our society and our culture as well, too. The amount of psychological I don't want to be negative either. I don't want to say damage, but this has hit people really, really hard, and it's going to take a minute to get everything back up and running. But human beings are tenacious, and I've often said that I think human beings we're at our best when we need each other, and we definitely need each other right now.
100%, and we needed a song that would kind of bring empowerment. And the fact that you raised over $300,000 is amazing. Now, you mentioned that you're working on your project. We're going to get to that, but let's talk about Shinedown. Are you guys working on a new album?
In answer to the question, we begin work on the new record, which is Shinedown 7, in June, actually. We're in the midst of a lot of editing right now with some other projects. Obviously, me and Zach have a double album coming out with Smith & Myers later this year, probably like around August. But when we finished up last year with Alter Bridge, our last show of the year was the O2 Arena in London, so we filmed that show and all the audio as well with that. So we've been in the midst of putting all that together. That's going to be released later this year. And then also on May 4th, our latest album, Attention, Attention, celebrated its second anniversary, its second birthday. And if people were not aware of this, Attention, Attention is a story album. It's a conceptual piece, and so we have a feature-length film of the entire record. So we always said we were going to make the film be the accompaniment to the story on the record, so that's going to be coming out later this year, which is a full-length motion picture that's going to be coming out for everybody. And there's a lot going on right now.
Yeah, you're a busy guy. That's amazing, though. So for your side project, do we have a release date, anything like that in locks yet? I know it's kind of hard right now to really nail down a date.
You know what's funny? It's actually not that hard because there's no active touring going on at the moment. This was always going to be. It's interesting for us too. Like 2020 for us in Shinedown, that was already scheduled to be a creative year to begin with. But obviously a lot has changed, and the literal fight to get the entertainment industry back up and running, getting it back up and running safely, but that's a 24/7 mission right now for a lot of people, including myself. So with the double album, it was interesting too because 8 weeks ago, I guess 9 weeks ago now, I leave this hotel that I'm at June 1st, and I'm in Ventura, California. It's interesting that on June 1st, it will be 100 days that I have been in this hotel, just because I was on lockdown and I needed to just kind of stay where I was at. But our producer, who is a dear friend of ours who's worked with Shinedown, worked with Smith & Myers, we've known him for a long time. His name is Dave Bassett, and he had taken his family to Hawaii real quick with the intent of being back in like a week. And then when he left, he literally, I don't want to say he got trapped in Hawaii, but when all this happened, no civilians could leave the island or come in. You either had to be medical or you had to be military. So he literally landed last night, and it's a 20-song, it's a double album that Smith & Myers, and we had 17 of the 20 done before he left. So finally on Monday of this week, I'm going to be able to go back to the studio and finish up the last 3 vocal tracks that I needed to take care of for the last 3 songs. So it's been a whirlwind. But August, I don't have an exact date, but I think August of this year is when the Smith & Myers album will come out.
Love it. We can all use some new music right about now. So your deep dive tour, it has been postponed. There was a little bit of a misunderstanding, but you clarified that, saying that obviously your number one priority is the safety. Now, the aim is for August and September still. Are you still hopeful for that time?
Yeah, but here's the thing, you know what? It's funny because I am very, very rarely the individual that gets quote unquote clickbaited, because I'm pretty much to the point about everything, and I try to put a very large overview of all the subjects that I put forth in any interview. Obviously, this, though, was something where it was kind of what looked like to be on purpose, just to get some clickbait. Yeah. Because if you watch the interview and you see what I say, it was 1,000% misconstrued. The other day, somebody was like, well, it looks like you were apologizing. I'm like, no, I wasn't apologizing. I was letting them know that they had, basically misquoted me and kind of, You know what I mean? And I don't even, it's not something that I even want to continue to talk about because I'm not trying to put anything on any other affiliate or media. I actually respect media quite highly, as long as the media is giving you the truth of the matter. But I appreciate the fan base because they definitely came to my defense and everything, and they were like, he didn't say it like that. You need to go back and watch the entire interview. And, you know, it's one of those things, too, like when you've got an hour-long interview and then somebody will cut, 25 minutes into it, and then they'll take something, they'll move the wording around. But regardless, I think people need to understand that Shinedown's priority with our fan base, their safety is always our number one priority. We're not going to do anything that, from state officials to government to, governors in those states or those countries or those cities or any of that, we would never, ever do anything that would put our audience in jeopardy. Even before a pandemic or anything of that nature, our audience, that is preposterous to think that we would ever put any of our fan base in jeopardy. Obviously we want to be able to do the shows, but we need to do them safely. And as of right now, they're still up. We're going to try everything in our power to be able to do them safely. If it can't happen, we'll readjust and we'll go from there. But we always want the audience to know that we got you. We're never going to put you in a dangerous situation.
Now you are working on Shinedown 7, which is super exciting. Over the years, and even now during this pandemic, how would you say your writing style has changed?
We just don't have any boundaries. We just don't have any level of censorship inside of what the thought process is and what we do. And that is from, the emotional side, from the lyrical content to the musical side. We have a really, really big palette. We've often said that it's not about the painter, it's about the painting. So when the four of us get together and we start kind of dissecting and kind of looking at the overview of what we want to talk about during that point of where we are in our career and in our lives as we do these records, we're never trying to make the same record twice. We're trying to go off of where we are at that moment in time. But one of the things that we've just always made very clear to each other is that there should never be any boundaries. If you have an idea, let's hear it. If you have a thought process on, adding instrumentation and looking at different soundscapes and what have you, let's hear them. So I think more than anything, it's just we've never ever had any boundaries with each other, and we always just want to make sure that we can make the most emotional music that we can make and be as honest as possible. I've often said that, I'm the main lyricist in the band, and I've often said that I write songs because it's cheaper than therapy. So it's I think for me it's just been something that I've never been shy lyrically. And also, I've got to be honest, I got to give it to the audience because they've always allowed us to be ourselves because we allow them to be themselves. I think that they've given us a platform, and we take that platform very, very seriously, but we only have one boss in Shinedown. It just happens to be everybody in the audience.
I love that. And my last question for you is there anything you would like to say to your fans?
Just to take a deep breath, seriously. Like, this is very overwhelming for all of us. But the reality is that when your back is up against a wall, the only direction you can go is forward. But I think there's a lot of people working really, really hard right now to get us through this, life-changing moment in human history. But we have to make it a life-changing moment for the better. So we have to be educated. We have to learn from this in order to have a bright and healthy future. We're going to have to work with one another, and we should work with one another. That's the whole principal point of this, is that put your politics aside and look at your fellow man, woman, and child and figure out, okay, how can we get through this together, and how can we be stronger for it? And one of the last things I would just say to everybody is, look, the environment, we need to listen to her, and by her I mean Mother Nature. Last time I checked, she was undefeated. And, we have to be respectful of not only ourselves, but we have to be respectful of the environment. And I would also tell people, if you've been thinking about beginning a fitness regimen or you've been wanting to get healthier and you maybe wanted to start eating better, there's no better time than right now. Study it out. Find an exercise program, start getting active, start moving, start changing your diet for the better, because that's only going to make you stronger and it's only going to help you fight off disease.
Hell yeah. Brent, thank you so much for joining me.
My pleasure. Thanks for giving me the time today.
Of course.